Hey everyone, today we're going to transform this to this. Essentially, I'm going to convert my Retroid Pocket 3 Plus into the metal version and do a quick review at the end and tell you whether I think it's worth it, especially considering the costs. So the first part of this video is just going to be a how-to guide. They do have it on their websites, on the YouTube channel, the Go Retroid YouTube channel, but I'm just going to take you step by step. They don't do any talking or explaining of what they're doing. So I'm going to guide you through that process. And then once I'm done, I'm just going to give a review because, you know, I already have a bit of an opinion, but I just want to feel the buttons and how everything kind of feels. It's going to be much of the same, I'm guessing, but you know, how much does it weigh, all that kind of thing, and whether it's worth the money. I can already tell you, like, let's just jump the gun, that this shell is really expensive. I'll put the price up on the screen. So it's definitely something for people who really love the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus and want to just put it up on a shelf and have it perfect. I made a joke on my YouTube channel and I said, once I'm done with this and once I'm famous on YouTube, this is going to be a collector's item. And that kind of is the vibe with this, that it makes it special. And I said to someone, I'm not a fan of two-tone, but this definitely is an iconic look. It's unique and everyone's going to know you have the metal version of the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. All right, so the first thing that I noticed is they give you this pack. It's got screwdrivers and tweezers and stuff. So let's quickly have a look at that. It's a little rough plastic set of tweezers. So that is a hex bit screwdriver, and that's a star screwdriver. I was just inspecting the screws on the outside and they look like the star version. Looks like you could also get them open with a hex bit, but there is the hex bit there that they provide you with, because I did bring my trusty hobby tool kit, but it looks like they've provided everything that I need. There's a bunch of spare screws in. I'm not going to take them out the bag because I don't want to lose them, but a bunch of spare screws. So we'll see if I need those screws later on. The thing that I really need is this guitar pick to pry it open and to pry my Retroid Pocket 3 Plus open. So I'm guessing that I need to put this aside for now and start on the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. So let's go ahead and do it. So the first thing that we need to do is open it up. And immediately I notice that this is actually a hex bit. So on the metal shell, these are stars, and this is a hex bit, so there's already a difference. They recommend starting the prying process here, because there is a little gap here. So let's see. Oh, that feels very precarious. Oh. Okay, so there's little clips. Not too bad. It does just pop open. It just feels awful. It does kind of feel like you're breaking it, but I don't appear to be breaking it. It seems to just be popping off. Okay, there we go. So now we should be able to just lift that off and nothing is connected yet. So that is a really good thing. So the next thing you're going to want to do is grab your Phillips head screwdriver, the one that looks like this. And you're going to remove that screw, that screw, that screw. So I'm guessing now if I lift that R, I'm voiding my warranty. It is what it is. Okay, and this heatsink thingy should just come off. I see there's a bit of tape here. So I'm just slowly pulling it off so that that tape releases. One thing I am noticing is this is very well constructed. So the next step, we are going to remove the battery. So they pulled this out with their fingers, but I am not that brave. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in here. These two little ridges, there and there. I just put my flathead screwdriver in there and just gave firm pull. So I just gave a little bit of pressure and held it in place and pulled. And then the same side here, there's a little chip here, so be very careful and just give that a firm pull as well. And then it does eventually just move out. So just if you've got confirmation that something is safe to do, then it makes it a little bit easier. They just kind of skipped over that. So these are actually clips that clip into place. So if you put a bit of pressure and pull, it's going to come out. And then you do it both sides just to get it out nice and safely. Just kind of be very gentle and just wiggle it until it comes out. There we go. Okay. And then the next thing is to pry this out. I think there's a little bit of glue you'll hear here. So just pry it gently, no severe force, otherwise you might pull something you're not supposed to pull. Like we are free. Yeah, okay, sure, it's a hefty battery, and yeah, that's some serious double-sided tape on there. I'm just turning the device back upright, just so that things make sense for you. So those are the speakers. That's the top of the device. All right, and then they say just pop this pigtail connector off here. This little antenna connector here. These things, get them on drones as well. Don't like pulling these off because the more you pry them off, the worse their connection becomes. See, they kind of just gloss over these things, but this is really difficult to get off. Let's pull it from here. There we go. So I just gave it a little bit of pressure on the neck there, popped off the one side, gave me enough leverage to pull the whole thing off. Okay, so that's loose. All right, so my ribbon connector here is a little bit different to the one on the video. If you aren't familiar with these things, it's confusing, but here this black thing is actually a catch. So you pull that up and then you just pull that ribbon out of there. Oh, that feels incorrect. These ribbon connectors, sorry, I've already taken this out now. I just want to show you. They have a little lever here. So you want to pop that lever up and then pull the ribbon out. That's how you get that done. And then here, you want to get this little plug out here. Just be very gentle with these things. Like you don't, some of these things pop out. So you want to just keep a bit of pressure so that your hand doesn't fling away. All right, so this one also comes out. There's not much room here. So you really just got to wiggle until you get it out. There we go. Okay, that is officially free. Okay, here's another opportunity to show you how these ribbon connectors work. So just pop this black thing up. Actually, a nail is probably going to do the trick. There, you'll feel it just release, get the ribbon out. Okay, so that one flips up quite easily. So there, and then this ribbon actually does come out as well. So I was worried about pulling it out, and actually you do need to pull it out. This does not feel right. All right, and the next ribbon connector to remove is this one there. And then we just get that one out of there. This is going to be fun to put back together. Okay, and then you're going to grab your Phillips head screwdriver again. And then there's a screw there, 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 and there. So I'm keeping my screws in stages just out of screen here. 1, 2, and just keeping them in little batches so that when I do this in reverse, I have a record. All right, and then this next step I want to say is easy, but it is also very stressful. So we've got to get the PCB out. All right, so now we're free. However, we're not free. There's very delicate wires here controlling what looks like the rumble motor. So in watching their video, they literally just dug the tweezers under here and just started ripping it out. So for the sake of this channel, I might just destroy one of my favorite devices. There we go. Getting some leverage. You see, the problem is there's a bit of glue under there. Yes. Okay, so it's not the best method, but there is a little bit of metal there. So if you can get the tweezers under there and just start pulling, you'll get this off. It's not the most secure double-sided tape, but it is that same strong double-sided tape they used for the battery. I need to open this up. Okay, so I just wanted to test that the hex bit does also work on these screws. So they're sort of dual screws. They work with hex bits and normal Phillips head screwdrivers. All right, let's use our pry tool again just to open this up. But I'm guessing the metal is going to be a bit easier. All right, so let's do a quick inspection. So this is the shoulder button side, so it's exactly the same as the plastic one. Got our grills there. For some reason the metal has got a big hole here. Oh, that is for the Wi-Fi, so that the Wi-Fi can get through. Otherwise you don't have any, it's not going to get through a metal shell. And then you do get some electronics with it. So let's have a look here. You get the PCB on this side, but you don't get the PCB on this side. You've got the Wi-Fi chip. Yeah, so that's the Wi-Fi thingy, the Wi-Fi aerial, sorry, not the chip. And then all the other buttons, this button is here, the TF card slot thingy. These buttons are here. I'm gonna have to put the speakers in here. Yeah, so there's quite a bit to be done here. There's our dpad motherboard. We need to get that from here to here. We need to get our screws out there. Looks like it's just the 2 screws. And we just pry this up. Let's see if there's anything holding it. This button is here, so we don't have to take that button. We just need this D-pad. So they've provided the D-pad. So this button here is going to press these 2 buttons on the motherboard. So you just got to line that up. So that's a bit of padding there. So let's get that in there first and then push. Yeah, that's what it is. And then you can also feel it pushing up against the D-pad All right, so we're in. So I've just had to lift this so that the D-pad isn't, when I push it down on the table, the D-pad from this side is pushing this motherboard up, this PCB up. So I'm just going to hold it in place and then put my screws in. So fortunately these little screwdrivers are magnetized. Let's get that in there. So because now we're screwing into metal, you're definitely getting some like solid resistance, and you just got to be very firm and direct when you're screwing these screws in, and they will let you know when they're done. There we go. Okay, and then this can be pushed in after the fact. Okay, those buttons are working nicely. So just a note here, these are little pieces of plastic coming off the button that press against the switches on your PCB. If you happen to put this on top of these buttons or this underneath these buttons when you're trying to put the PCB in, you can break either these little pieces of plastic, or the buttons themselves and pull them out the PCB. So just be careful. I think the way that I did it, it's best to leave this button out, put the PCB in, and then reinstall this button. I think that's going to work the best. So you'll notice that there's a ribbon cable here, which is going to help us install the rest of the system, but there isn't one here. So we have to take this ribbon cable and put it here. I see they've used this special tape. I'm wondering if I can actually use it. So let's just see. There, so we just pop that off there, get the ribbon out. We do have to be careful of tearing these ribbons. Okay, so that's out. Oh, this tape is actually a problem. So it's heat-resistant tape, but it sticks like crazy. The ribbon is also double-sided taped to the body. I'm actually trying to get that double-sided tape to come with. This is not for the faint of heart. Unfortunately, my camera died just as I was doing this, but I cut that piece of tape between the two ribbon cables. So that special heat-resistant tape, I cut it down the middle and then transferred it over to the metal shell you'll see in the next clip. Okay, so apparently the speaker, so these are the speakers here that I need to transfer. There's no speakers in the new shell. Apparently I just have to pull from this side. Yeah, you can feel there's a little bit of double-sided tape there. And it just pops out. There's the double-sided tape. So we just try to keep that double-sided tape alive and just transfer it straight across. There's a bit of metal, like piece of plastic, that you can butt up against over here. It was just, a piece of metal. Over here is a piece of plastic. We just butt up against there. Make sure it's snugly in position, and then we just stick it back down. There we go. And do the same with this one. And then we get this one back going. So you'll see the CNC areas for the various things. And so this has got a little section here that goes down. So we just make it fit snugly in there, and that fits perfectly. All right, so you'll remember I took the motherboard out of here. It is this one, the one with the little rumble motor. Now I'm going to try put that back. It was this way around, and the rumble motor needs to go in here. There's a section for the rumble motor, and then there's a hard little ridge here. So we've got to make sure the wires go past that hard ridge. So we're going to start with the rumble motor. This is the first hurdle to get over. Okay, so we just stick that. There's a bit of double-sided tape still there, or a bit of adhesive. And then we also just make sure that our wires are going down. These wires are actually quite rigid and bendy. So do that. And then swivel our PCB. Kind of take your time, Don't rush anything, because you've got so many little things to think of. There's this plug that we need to get around, and we don't want to squish the wires, so make sure that the wires come out. Okay, that's fine. This needs to go on top of there. Then you've got to make sure you go on top of your screw holes, but also your ports and things like here. This needs to line up here, so that's going to guide you as well. I'm actually going to so this plug is going to be a problem if I don't put it in now. So I'm actually going to plug that one in. Yeah, you really do need to take your time, because there's just so many little moving parts, and you kind of just got to fiddle and make sure that nothing's getting squished. Like now I have forgotten about the Wi-Fi aerial, so I've just got to pry that out there. And also very important, don't rush this. like if you've got somewhere to be, don't do this. Okay, that wire is still through there. With the ribbon coming out. There we go. Yeah, okay, and there's a little pin that comes through there that holds the PCB in place. All right, we are looking good. Okay, everything's feeling nice. It doesn't feel like anything's being forced in place. I think putting that plug in beforehand was a good idea. Let's get our little Wi-Fi plug in place. So this you want to line up before you put any pressure, because this is a little aerial thingy and it's got a tiny pin in the middle, and if you get it wrong, okay, there, I can feel it's lined up and it snaps on. So you're going to have to put a little bit of pressure once you have lined it up. There we go, that's in nicely. Right, so we've got the Wi-Fi aerial plugged in. You've got to constantly check. What I did here was I forgot about this ribbon cable, so I'm just going to pull this ribbon cable back. There. All right, so everything, there we go. You can feel it like kind of just, there's a few little pins that go into the PCB and keep it in place. So now everything feels pretty good. All my cables are ready. I've pre-installed that cable. This one we could probably plug in now as well. That goes in nicely. All right, so now I'm going to screw this PCB down so that we're nice and secure. Some of these screws are actually not threading very well, so I'm having to put a bit of power in there to get those in. Okay, so the ribbons that I was worried about are actually not that difficult. I kind of tested this out quickly off camera. So bend that over, give it a little bit of, not pressure, but it'll slot in. Once it finds the guides on the either side, it slots in quite nicely. And then there's a little bit of a ridge here, so just push it in and then close the clasp. You'll feel it click. Now that's in. There we go. And then the next one should just be the same story. So you just kind of get it in the general area of where you want it. And then once you feel it slide in, you know it's in position. So don't force it. There we go. That just slots it in. Just make sure it is. Yeah. And then just close the clasp. Simple as that. Same for this one. Be very careful of breaking a rumble motor. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you lose rumble, but, you know, you want your device back to working order when you're done. This one's not working, so the urge is to kind of try and push it in, but you don't want to do that. You just want it to, there we go. You want to feel that just go in smoothly and easily. And you're not forcing it, and it's going in correctly, and close the clasp. There we go. We will need to kind of go on the fly here. The only problem is, let me just check. I don't think they gave me screws with this. Oh, hang on. The installation kit that came with this does have screws. So I'm going to not steal these screws. I'm going to use the screws that came with the installation kits. So the nice thing about this is that these are all the same thread. Well, some of them are self-tapping screws. The one that came with the case is self-tapping in case you struggle to reinstall the screws to hold the case in place. But here with the hall sensors, I've got a couple of these machine screws. I think it's a M1 screw, and so I'm going to use that now for the joysticks. Let's just see. I might need to raise it slightly. Yeah, I need to raise it slightly, and let's just see how the other one fits in. My confidence has gone up. I'm just going to make these loose. So these little tabs over here, just got to make sure that they are loose, and then we're going to put the joysticks in. We've got our screw thingies there, and then we're going to put the ribbons in. So let's do that now. Yeah, just to mention again, you do need to raise this because these joysticks are obviously going out further than the end of the case. So you just have to lift it up. It is a bit precarious. Just be careful not to strip your screws. Just give enough pressure that you're turning in, because it is a metal chassis, so you're going to get quite a bit of resistance at times. You've also got to be careful not to strip the screw, so you don't want to just force it. If you're not feeling a smooth entry into the thread, then you're probably cross-threading, and you need to just stop and try again. I'm just going to look for the right screw here. Yeah, so this installation kit, they've only given me 4 of these M1 screws, the exact amount that I need. So just be careful not to lose those. Again, I'm just going to get some good leverage here and pressure to get this in. This one's going in a much easier, but then again, don't overturn at the end because you don't want to break the plastic thingy around the edge here. So I just want to turn it over, make sure there's just this that's loose. So I'm just going to hold this and turn it over so we can check that joystick. Feeling good? Yeah, that also feels good. Yeah, everything looks good there. Now we're going to do this side. I'm not going to put the ribbons in just yet. I first want to get everything secured. There, it just drops into place. All right, so those are in. Now we're just going to get the ribbons into place. Okay, so there is a bit of play here. There's also some play here on this one. So it's definitely normal. So I'm just making sure I've got a tiny amount of pressure. So it's just pushing it flush against the inside of this clasp thingy. And then just push that catcher, the little thingy, into place. When you put this flush down and in, it just slots in, like it goes in very easily. It feels like there's a bit of a wiggle to it, so I'm just trying to make sure it's nice and flush, and then just push that clasp down. Before I close it, I'm going to test that it is working. Now we are ready to put the battery in. This wire was running underneath, so I'm just going to switch that to run under there. So now that the ribbon's back, we are going to put the battery back. So here we have the battery. Obviously the sticker's on this side, so we need to do it here. Remember I said I was worried about this pigtail, this antenna plug. So I just want to make sure that everything goes in nicely. The other thing is this cable is here, so I'm just going to, I think it was actually squished originally, but I just don't want to squish it, so I'm just going to move it there. So we're going to push this up against the antenna wire just to get it out the way a little. Actually, it doesn't butt up against it much at all. Then I'm going to, there we go, it kind of nestles in there quite nicely, and then I'm just going to pull this cable, drop it in, give a little push. There we go. That's not going anywhere. And then this plug, I think it's important that we get a little bit of leverage away there. So just kind of bend that out a little bit and then get this flat against the PCB. So get this plug flat down and then just slide it in. There it already kind of like wants to go in. So there, just use your nails or something. I'm just finding the nails are the easiest here. And that's in. Okay, so the only thing we have left is the heat sink. And that is it. Okay, so if you have been paying very close attention and you notice that I put the screw in the PCB here, don't do that. This screw only goes in now. So let's start with that one. I'm just going to leave them slightly loose so we've got a little bit of wiggle room as we go around and put these screws in. There. That's my warranty screw. So my warranty is screwed. What I do is I just do a little reverse screw, and when I feel it's kind of slots in, then I actually screw it into the thread, just to avoid cross-threading, you know. Okay, so before we put the case on, it's just important to make sure that all your buttons are actually in place. You know, when you put the case on, you don't want to be putting pressure on any of these buttons. So for instance, for some reason, there's a little bit of this shoulder button keeps on wanting to pop out, and there's a rubber thingy there that actually creates the nice soft button press when you're pressing the button. But if you just put that on top here, there's a digital switch there, and if you just put it on top and you close the case, you might break that digital switch inside. So just make sure your little rubber bumper is on top of the switch. There's no tension, and there we go. I think I am in. And then, you know, for this one, the same story. This is going to push on a little digital button there. Make sure it's not half in or diagonal, because it is going to damage it. Same here. This is a rocker, and it's pressing two digital switches on either side, and you've got a little foam bump in the middle. Make sure nothing's out of place, because you could cause damage. Make sure the little thingy is in place on this pin. Same story here as here. Make sure that little rubber thing is pressing against the digital button. Here's fine. My speakers are in properly. Put the cover on. Push it in place. There, everything's slotting nicely. Okay, now we're good. There is a little bit of lift here, which I'm not sure why. There we go. Yeah, and I think just sorting out those buttons is one of the things. So had I just screwed it on, I might have, I'm not saying I would have, but I might have caused some damage. So there we go. Okay, now we want to put these screws back in. Remember, use the hex bit screwdriver with the screws that came with this. We'll just double check the screws that they've put in there. Make sure that they are, you know, Phillips or hex bits or whatever they might be, but mine are hex bits. Okay, so a little setup thingy that we need to do is to calibrate these sticks. So fortunately, Retroid have this built into their Android. And so we just go into settings, we go down to handheld settings, we go to input control and joystick calibration. So we calibrate the left. And then we calibrate this one. The first thing I noticed is when I close the metal device, the heatsink inside has a little bit of compression to it. So the heatsink inside is a little bit raised in the middle and it needs to be pushed down. This plastic case has little clips here all the way around. And there we go, clicks closed. Everything is clipped into place before there's no screws in yet. And this could just work like this without screws and no one would even know that it was incorrectly installed. And so those clips really help in creating an integrity to the device. Now the metal device, obviously they couldn't create those clips. And so now I actually have a bit of a gap in the seam on the bottom of the metal device. And I thought I'd done something wrong and I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it now, but now in closing this, I think that's the problem. And so I do think if you are going to upgrade it, maybe they manufacture it slightly differently in the factory, but you probably are going to have a little bit of a gap in the seam here. It's not the end of the world. You know, I don't think anyone would have noticed. And you know, if I resell the device one day or whatever, it's not going to be an issue. I'm not going to have sleepless nights thinking that I sold someone a dud device. So it's not the end of the world, but it is just something to note that there is this tolerance and it doesn't work with the metal device. And then in terms of the difficulty level, initially I was very intimidated because of the ribbon cables. I hate ribbon cables. They freak me out. And so you have to just make sure those are lined up. And so it just takes a little bit of care and forethought. And, you know, towards the end of the video, I kind of got the hang of it and I was doing things on my own because you start to understand the device. And so before you know it, you kind of know where things need to go and how to do it. So I would grade this out of 10. Difficulty level a 6. Coming from someone, I don't build digital devices for a living. I do a little bit of soldering for FPV drones, but that's about it. You know, I've got a bit of a technical mind. So I would say it's a 6. You know, if I handed it to, I don't know, a friend who's not technical at all, maybe an 8. But yeah, it is a slightly more advanced upgrade. And so if you're not a super technical person, I don't recommend it. So let's quickly talk about their value proposition. Just quickly went onto their website. The upgrade kit is $65. The device itself cost me $150. So we're looking at $225 for an upgrade. Whereas if you buy it outright, it's sold out currently, but it's $180. That is around about the price of the RG405M, which is a lovely device, but it's got a smaller screen. If you put Gamma OS in it, it does improve that the screen was over sharpened, but it is a fairly low resolution screen. Then you're kind of just comparing, you're doing a comparison of those two devices, and maybe that's a video for another day. I would say in terms of the value proposition, there is already a manufacturer, Ambernic, making the RG405M, and it's the same price. So I think if you buy the metal version, it is what it is. If you upgrade it, I think this device as a whole is for metal device lovers because obviously it is heavier now with the metal case. I think the upgrade itself isn't financially worth it, but I don't think the people who are watching this video and are trying to decide whether to do it are as worried about finances as they are about creating a slightly more collectible device. Because I know that this device is going to be special and that in a little while, someone's going to reach out to me and say, please, can I have your metal device? And it's going to probably be worth more than what I paid for it, you know? So I do think it is a bit of a collectible, and I think it's expensive, and I think there are better devices out there. $210, you know, that's heading into, I think I can get a Loki Max Zero for $250. So it's heading into that territory. So an upgrade kit and all this isn't really worth it, but I think it is for people who really love the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, really love metal devices, and I think you will really enjoy it.